Incredible revelation. Officers burn black woman's passport. Discover she asked the Attorney General. Ayana Davis stood outside the community center, the evening air buzzing with the passionate voices of her neighbors. Muted music from a street vendor mingled with the laughter of children playing nearby. She felt a swell of pride as she wrapped up her meeting. A single mother and a warrior for justice in her vibrant but struggling neighborhood of Philadelphia, Ayana had become a beacon of hope. She was not just the first black woman to serve as Attorney General in the state, she was a force to be reckoned with. But this night would take a dark turn. Just as she slid into the driver's seat of her car, her heart full from the discussions about local inequalities, the flashing lights of a police car reflected off her rearview mirror like a bad dream. Her stomach dropped. She thought of how far she had come. And yet, here was a reality she couldn't escape. "Ma'am, pull over." The command was sharp. She complied, confusion swirling inside her. As the officers approached, her pulse quickened. They looked at her with skepticism, as if questioning her very existence. "License and identification?" one officer demanded, his eyes narrowing with judgment. With a heavy heart, she handed over her ID and passport. The pit in her stomach twisted deeper. What kind of world judged worth by skin color? As they scrutinized her documents, the atmosphere shifted. "This looks suspicious," one officer spat, as the other nodded, a smirk crossing his lips. "Are you sure these are yours?" In that moment, Ayana felt the weight of her entire life crash over her. They accused her of fraud based solely on her race. It was surreal, heartbreaking, the air thick with indignation. Then it happened. They ignited her passport just feet away from her, flames licking at the paper, as if erasing her very identity. The world around her blurred, tears stinging her eyes, aching for the boy she once was, lost in a system that refused to acknowledge her value. "Mom, this isn't real." Her teenage daughter, Maya, screamed from the sidewalk, a mix of disbelief and anger painted on her face. Ayana's chest tightened as she glanced at her. Their strong bond, built on years of resilience, was now fraying with misunderstandings. How could she explain to her daughter the biases she fought against daily? "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The officers backed away, their laughter echoing in her ears like a sick joke. Ayana's heart raced with fury. But then, from the corner of her eye, she saw familiar faces emerging from the crowd. Longtime neighbors and community leaders, voices raised in anger. This was bigger than her. This was their shared fight. Realizing she wasn't alone, Ayana found strength in their presence. They rallied together, united against oppression. As the officers malfunctioned under the weight of community outcry, she stood there transformed. The agony of the moment fused with her determination to make this injustice known. As she looked around at her family and neighbors, she knew this confrontation would change everything. The tension thickened the air. A churning storm brewing on the horizon awaited her next step. Would this stand against injustice finally spark the change her community so desperately needed, or would darkness reign, leaving them to grapple with their misunderstandings? The answer lingered in the air, a fervent question with a pulse echoing hope, justice, and unity that demanded resolution. The crowd pressed in, a living wave of solidarity, each face sharing Ayana's anger, her disbelief. Voices rose like a chorus, a symphony of rage and heartbreak that reverberated through the streets. "How dare you!" someone shouted, fists clenched. You don't get to treat her like that. Ayana felt her heart quicken. This was not just about her. It was about every person who had ever endured injustice, each individual whose spirit had been bruised by the weight of discrimination. They weren't just showing up for her. They were standing up for themselves. Maya moved closer, her teenage face a blend of fury and fear. Mom, they can't do this. You have to tell them who you are. Ayana turned to her daughter, searching for the right words. Maya, they know who I am. But to them, it doesn't matter. My titles and achievements, none of that changes their perception of me. But it should. Maya's voice cracked. Anguish bubbled in her chest. She was watching her mother fight a battle she couldn't fully understand. You're strong. You fought for this community. I know, baby. And I will keep fighting. But fear blinds them. It doesn't matter how much I've done. Ayana fought to keep her voice steady, to show Maya the strength she needed to see. Suddenly sirens pierced the air, drawing closer. Ayana braced herself, a tight knot of anxiety in her stomach. She was ready for things to escalate further, but she couldn't back down now. The community around her, their faces etched with determination, ignited a fire in her. Stand firm. Stand together. A local activist bellowed, rallying the crowd. Murmurs shifted to roars, energy palpable, vibrating through the night. The officers might have thought they could instill fear, but Ayana felt empowered. This was a moment of reckoning. The officers shifted nervously, their confidence weighing under the weight of the gathered crowd. Ayana eyed them closely. They were a glimpse of a broken system, one she had dedicated her life to change. Look at us! Ayana cried out, raising her voice above the chaos. We are not afraid. We will not be silenced. Cheers erupted. The sounds of unity transformed into a wave of hope. This battle was no longer just hers. It was everyone's. Through the crowd, a figure emerged. It was Mayor Thompson, a familiar face in the neighborhood. As he approached, his expression was serious. Ayana, I came to support you, he said, his eyes scanning the scene. What is happening here? Ayana felt a rush of relief wash over her. She was no longer isolated. They had the mayor with them. They burned my passport, claiming I'm a fraud, she explained, her voice catching with emotion. They can't erase who I am or what I stand for. The mayor's brows furrowed in anger. This cannot stand. We need to address this now, or it will only escalate. He glanced back at the officers, standing stiff with uncertainty. This isn't just about one incident, gentlemen. This is about the trust and safety of our community. You need to answer for this. Ayana felt the shift. The tide was turning. Would this moment change the course of their struggle? Would her fight for justice finally ignite the urgent call for reform? As the officers exchanged unsure glances, she took a deep breath. This was just the beginning. With support behind her, Ayana knew they could confront the injustices at the heart of their city. But before the wheels of justice could truly turn, a new challenge loomed in the shadows. What awaited them in the halls of power? Would they find allies, or would they face further resistance at the highest levels? The questions hung in the air, deepening the resolve in her heart. The murmurs of the crowd swelled, vibrating with a mix of anger and anticipation. Those gathered around Ayana didn't just want justice. They craved accountability. The mayor stood firm beside her, the solidarity of his presence a beacon of hope. Still, uncertainty loomed in the cool night air. Ayana could sense the urgency and fear rippling through the community. Her own heart raced. What happens now? She whispered to Mayor Thompson. Now, we confront this injustice head-on, he replied firmly, scanning the shifting expressions of the officers. The moment seemed suspended in time, yet every second felt heavier than the last. The officers exchanged glances, their bravado flickering in the face of the unified front before them. Gather information. Someone called out, distracting Ayana for a moment. She turned to see a group of supporters taking photos and recording videos, documentation of this moment that might protect them from misinformation. It was a small comfort, yet crucial in a world that often twisted narratives to fit its own agenda. Suddenly, one of the officers took a step forward. "We're here to ensure peace," he said, trying to regain his composure. Yet there was doubt in his voice, and it was hard to ignore how thin his veneer of authority had become. "Peace?" Ayana shot back, emotion bubbling up inside her. "What you did tonight was anything but peaceful. You burned my passport, you disrespected my identity, and in doing so, you've disrespected everyone who looks like me." The crowd echoed her anger with their own shouts, amplifying the tension. But just as the atmosphere felt about to crack, the mayor raised a hand, commanding silence. He faced the officers. "The community demands answers. I expect full accountability for your actions." The moment stretched and cracked, like the rubber band of tension ready to snap. Inside Ayana, anguish and grit clashed fiercely. Was this the turning point she'd hoped for? Or merely a flash in the pan, a fleeting moment where voices emerged, only to be silenced again? "Look," a younger officer finally spoke up, his face pale. "We were just following orders." Didn't he know what?" Ayana interjected sharply. "Didn't he know a black woman could be an attorney general? Didn't he think I was worthy of respect? You need to do better." That bit of anger landed like a punch, the crowd palpable in their agreement. Ayana felt the tide rise anew, bolstered by voices from her own community, emotions rising like a swell. The mayor chimed in. "You need to put aside your biases. There is no justification for what has happened tonight. You'll issue an apology, and we'll work together to ensure this doesn't happen again." "Or what?" One of the officers spat back, defiance marking his posture. "You really think this crowd scares me?" The response from the gathered community was immediate and loud, a thunderous roar that echoed through the street, drowning out all hesitation. Ayana turned to Maya, meeting her eyes. "See what we can do together," she whispered, just loud enough for her daughter to hear. Through the fear, she saw a flicker of pride in Maya's gaze. Then something shifted. The mayor looked at the gathering and raised his hand. "If you continue this path of ignorance, it will not be just tonight. This will echo, and you will be held accountable beyond this street." The officers shifted, trapped between their discomfort and the growing pressure of the crowd. It was a moment of reckoning for them as well. Yet as anger surged in Ayana's heart, she wondered what repercussions would come next. Would they actually follow through to repair this fractured trust? Would they lean into what they'd learned, facing their own biases? The crowd roared once more, but amidst the sounds of unity, Ayana felt a stirring uneasiness. What if this was just the beginning of an even greater struggle? As the night deepened and emotions surged, Ayana pondered the powerful choices lay ahead. Would they finally push for change, or would fear send them spiraling back into silence? Only time would reveal if this moment could spark the transformation they longed for. And as she stood there, she knew one thing for certain. This fight was far from over. The climax loomed, anticipation crackling in the air like electricity, waiting for its moment to explode. What decisions would be made in the following days, and who would pay the price? The night wore on, but the fight was just beginning. Ayana felt the pulse of the crowd around her. Their collective heartbeat pounded against the walls of fear and doubt that had built over the years, a rhythm of unity that seemed almost palpable. Yet, with this strength came vulnerability. What if they slipped back into silence? What if this moment of courage dissipated like steam on a cold night? "Mom," Maya's voice broke through her thoughts, soft yet firm. "What if they don't change? What if this is just talk?" Ayana knelt down until she was eye level with her daughter. "It starts with us, Maya. We're here, speaking out. That alone is powerful. She brushed a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear, her fingers lingering just a moment longer. Change is slow, but it can happen. Maya nodded, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. The intensity of the moment overwhelmed the young girl, and Ayana could see that. But within that uncertainty was also hope. The crowd continued chanting in solidarity, voices rising and falling like ocean waves, crashing against the shores of injustice. Then, as if sensing the need for action, the mayor took a step forward. We can't forget why we're here. If we truly want to stand against this injustice, we must take concrete steps. His voice broke slightly, catching in his throat, revealing the weight of his own emotions. Ayana straightened, reminded that the mayor was human too, trapped in this complicated web of authority and public opinion. She could see at the tiny crack in his confident facade where fear seeped through, just like it did for everyone else tonight. "Let us organize a town hall," he suggested, the spark of determination igniting within him. "We'll gather the community to discuss how we move forward. Each of us must commit to be part of the solution." A buzz of excitement swelled through the crowd at the mention of a town hall. Ayana felt a surge of warmth wash over her. Together, they could take steps toward accountability. The idea that they could gather and discuss face to face filled her with a sense of purpose. But there were still the officers standing nearby, their expressions a blend of confusion and anxiety. Ayana's attention snapped back to them. "You think a town hall is going to hide what happened tonight?" she called out, her eyes narrowing. "Words mean nothing without action." An older officer shifted uneasily, his hands trembling slightly. Would you like to better understand the issues you're facing?" he stammered, almost ashamed. Was this genuine? Or simply a feeble attempt at damage control? Ayana studied him, reading body language that contradicted the bravado she had seen earlier. In that moment, she sensed a flicker of something real and opening. "Understanding starts with listening," she said carefully, feeling the weight of each word. "And acknowledging we are more than your suspects or offenders. We are your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues. We want respect." The air hung heavy with a charged silence, everyone holding their breath as the moment stretched. This was a challenge thrown down, and Ayana felt a surge of hope creeping in, mingled with doubt. Then a voice from the crowd broke through, calling out, "What about the support we need? This can't be a one-off conversation. We need resources, training, something concrete." The other officers exchanged glances, apprehension lacing their features. Ayana watched as the younger officer rubbed the back of his neck, as if it physically hurt to acknowledge the ramifications of their actions. The mayor, feeding off this energy, added, "We can also involve community leaders, hire consultants, and make sure the police force undergoes training on bias and equality. It's time to change the system from the inside out." Cheers erupted. Hope soared, but it was still fragile. Ayana felt that uneasy knot in her stomach again. What if the resolve faded into rhetoric once the cameras were off? "Will you really commit to this?" she pressed, seeking the truth hidden behind the bravado. "No more empty promises?" The older officer straightened. His posture, the anxiety evident, but met with steady resolve. "We'll do better, I promise. We all need to do better." Ayana couldn't tell if it was just lip service or a true beginning of change. She felt an urge to grasp this moment, to make sure it counted for something more. Surrounded by the voices of community supporters, she knew this moment could shape their reality. But what if the struggle for change led to conflict both within and outside the walls they were trying to break? The threads of uncertainty tightened inside her. Change was needed, but would it come at a price? As the night deepened and whispers of commitment filled the air, she thought about what lay ahead. Would their voices echo in the halls of power? Or would they fall silent again, overshadowed by a system that thrived on complacency? The crowd began to disperse, but she could feel the lingering energy, a spark ready to ignite. Ayana took a deep breath, her heart racing with the weight of what was to come. What would their next step be? Would they truly grasp this moment and carry it through the storm ahead? Ayana stood at the edge of the gathering, feeling both empowered and anxious. The voices around her thrummed with energy, but beneath it lay a current of uncertainty. People hugged, exchanged numbers, and even planned their next steps with hopeful smiles. Yet doubt clawed at her. Had they done enough? "Mom!" Maya exclaimed, bouncing on the balls of her feet. "Did you see? People are really coming together." Her eyes sparkled, innocence mixed with the weight of the world they were trying to change. "Yes, baby," Ayana smiled, ruffling her daughter's hair, but her heart was torn. She wanted to believe that this was the start of something great, yet the memory of past disappointments haunted her. A woman approached them, a community leader they had seen in the neighborhood. "Ayana, I just wanted to say how brave you were tonight. Your words sparked something in this community." Ayana felt the warmth of gratitude spread through her. "Thank you. But it's important that we keep this momentum alive." "Absolutely," the woman nodded vigorously. "We need to plan for that town hall, but we also need to ensure that it's a safe space for everyone. We need to talk about safety, resources, everything." As they spoke, the younger officer she had seen earlier lingered nearby, watching. Ayana caught his eye, and he shifted uncomfortably. "I'm sorry," he said, almost too quietly for anyone else to hear. Didn't he know what?" Ayana challenged, her voice firm but not unkind. "Didn't he know that people in your community were struggling just to be seen and heard?" He swallowed hard. "I want to understand." "I really do," he murmured. "I need to do better." Despite herself, Ayana felt a flicker of connection. This was the moment she had fought to create, but it came with complications. As she turned away from the officer, a loud commotion erupted on the other side of the park. A flurry of voices rose, urgent and demanding. The hairs on the back of Ayana's neck stood on end. She motioned for Maya to stay close as they moved toward the chaos. "What is going on?" Ayana asked a nearby man. His face was pale, eyes wide with disbelief. "They just caught some officers burning documents, people's IDs. Someone said they found a woman's passport and—" He stammered, eyes darting back to the crowd. The tension thickened in the air. People began to shout and push toward the center of the scene. Curiosity compelled Ayana forward, her heart racing. As they broke through the crowd, the sight before her left her breathless. Officers, looking panicked, stood by a smoldering pile. Someone shouted, "That's her passport," pointing furiously at a young black woman, eyes wide with distress. Maya pulled on her sleeve. "Mom." "It's going to be okay," Ayana said, though her voice trembled. The woman stepped forward, anger igniting her posture. "You've taken everything from me. This isn't just a piece of paper. This is my identity." Ayana's heart sank as she recognized the woman from the community she had spoken up in the past, advocating for fairness. "Wait! Who are you?" An older officer barked, frustration creeping into his tone. "I'm the Attorney General. You think you can silence me?" she screamed, stepping closer. The crowd gasped collectively, shock rippling through them. The crowd's emotions swirled: anger, confusion, fear, but also a growing sense of empowerment. The Attorney General was among them, and they had to stand together. Ayana felt the weight of the situation. This could be the moment to rally and take a stand. But what if things escalated? The older officer flipped through his notes, utterly flabbergasted. "We just thought." "No more thinking." The Attorney General shot back. "This is about action. You can't take our identities and expect us to remain silent." The atmosphere crackled with tension. This wasn't just about one person anymore. It was a reckoning, a broader challenge against a system many had tried to endure. Ayana locked eyes with Maya, her daughter's gaze wide with uncertainty and fear. Let us show them our strength. But as she stepped forward, she realized the stakes had risen dramatically, and this was no longer just a community struggle. It was about power, identity, and the right to be heard. "Stay close to me, Maya," she whispered, heart pounding as she prepared to face the storm ahead. Would this be the spark for genuine change, or was it a warning of further conflict brewing just beneath the surface? Ayana's pulse quickened as she pushed her way forward through the throng of anxious faces. The air was electric with an odd mix of fear and bravery, thick enough to choke on, but she forced herself to breathe. The Attorney General stood her ground, muscles taut, challenging the officers like a lioness protecting her cubs. "What do you think you're doing?" the Attorney General demanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. The crowd murmured, caught between fear and adrenaline, ready to erupt. Ayana felt a surge of warmth. This was a woman who refused to be ignored. Maya pulled at her sleeve again, softer this time. "Mom, what if they hurt her?" "No one is going to hurt her," Ayana assured, though she couldn't shake the knot of worry that twisted in her stomach. "And we need to make sure of that." The older officer, still fumbling through his notes, seemed to realize the gravity of the situation just a second too late. "We were just doing our job," he stammered, frustration spilling over. "Your job?" the Attorney General echoed incredulously. "Your job is to protect and serve, not to erase identities. Don't you understand what you've done?" Panic spread like wildfire through the crowd. Ayana glanced around, searching for familiar faces, allies in this fight. She saw anger, confusion, and determination reflected in their eyes. It was time to harness that energy. "Listen," Ayana shouted, her voice cutting through the clamor. "This is about us, all of us. We have to stand together. This is not just about one passport, it's about our lives, our voices." Movement surged through the crowd, people shifting closer, nodding in solidarity. They were awakening to the truth that had always been simmering beneath the surface. Essences of community began to surface, wrapped in the emotion of all those years of quiet suffering. "Yeah!" someone shouted from the back, emboldened. "We deserve respect." Maya's eyes sparkled with recognition, her small hands squeezing Ayana's tighter. The atmosphere swelled with purpose, and Ayana felt the walls of doubt around her crumble. "We won't be silenced anymore," she rallied. "Not today." As if inspired by her words, the Attorney General stepped forward, her chin lifted defiantly. "You don't get to take away who we are. We will fight back, and we will be heard." The officers exchanged looks, their earlier bravado faltering in the face of collective resolve. Ayana noticed a few of them shifting, visibly unsure of how to respond now that the community was ignited. But just then, a loud crack rang through the air, an officer's radio. "All units, situation escalating at the park. Requesting backup." A tremor of fear rippled through the crowd. "Did they call for more officers?" someone gasped. Ayana's heart raced again, and in that moment, she realized that this confrontation was only beginning. The real fight was still ahead of them, and it would require more than just words to bring about change. "Everyone listen," she urged, her voice steady, piercing through the panic. "We have to remain peaceful, but we will not cower. We will show them our strength, together." Maya's small voice chimed in, louder this time. "Together." The crowd echoed her, a wave rolling through, a confirmation that they wouldn't back down. But even as unity blossomed, Ayana couldn't shake the worry gripping her heart. What if the backup arrived and things turned violent? She couldn't let that happen, not for her daughter, not for the community they were fighting to protect. "Maya," she whispered, drawing her closer, "if things get out of hand, I need you to find a safe spot, okay?" Her daughter nodded, though the fear still danced in her eyes, fear of the unknown, but also awe in the burgeoning spirit around them. Just then, new voices broke through the crowd, more officers, this time with an air of authority, and the tension surged again, crackling in the air. It was a balancing act now, the scales of justice tiptoeing dangerously. "Stay united," Ayana yelled, gripping Maya's hand tighter as the officers approached. She felt the strength of the community surrounding her, but would it be enough to hold the line against an unwelcome tide? As the officers closed in, the crowd bristled, ready for anything. Would they fight for their rights or surrender under the weight of oppression? The decision loomed like a cloud, dark and heavy overhead, and Ayana's heart raced at the thought of what was to follow. Would this moment of rising hope become a beacon, or a battleground? The air vibrated with tension as the officers stepped closer. Their uniforms gleamed under the dim light, and their expressions hard, unyielding, were a stark contrast to the sea of faces before them. Ayana tightened her grip on Maya's hand, aware of the growing restlessness in the crowd. "Ayana!" a voice shouted from behind. It was Carlos, an old friend and local activist. His eyes were wild, urging her to look around. "Look at the faces. They're scared, but they're also angry. We need to channel that energy." "Yes," Ayana responded, her initial fear giving way to a spark of inspiration. She could feel the crowd pulsing, alive and roused. "Fear holds us back, but together we can turn that fear into courage. Let us not waste this moment. We can't let them divide us." The Attorney General continued to stand tall, her determination unwavering, and the crowd began to chant her name. "Nancy! Nancy! Nancy!" They called for the woman not just leading them, but embodying their fight, their struggle for recognition and respect. The officers shifted uncomfortably, occasionally glancing at one another, as if silently debating what to do next. "I'm sorry," one of them finally spoke, his voice low. "But we're just following orders. You need to disperse." "Just following orders?" Ayana shot back, her voice gaining strength. "How many times have we heard that excuse?" The chant surged louder, and she felt a warmth spreading through her like wildfire. "How many times have we seen good people hurt, believing they were just following orders?" As they listened, doubt seeped into the ranks. Some of the officers' expressions faltered. Could they really defend the actions they'd been ordered to perform? Could they suppress a community bound by shared struggles and the dream of change? "Look at yourselves," Maya said, stepping forward a little, her youthful voice trembling yet fierce. "Are you really okay with what is happening? Is this who you want to be?" The mass of people applauded Maya's courage, her innocent yet powerful words hanging in the air. The crowd began to chant again, louder this time, an anthem of unity that thrummed in Ayana's chest. "We are more than a badge. We are more than just orders." With every chant, Ayana felt more empowered. They think they control it, but they don't. "We're fighting for our identities and our truth." She paused to catch her breath, breathing in the energy around her. "Together, we can turn this moment into something unforgettable." Suddenly, another crackle filled the air, penetrating the tide of voices this time, a loudspeaker activated by one of the newer officers. "Attention! You are all violating public order. You must leave now." But the crowd became more determined, not less. "No more fear," people shouted back. "No more silence." Ayana turned, her eyes scanning the sea of determined faces. They were all there for their shared fight. "Remember this feeling," she shouted, her heart racing. "We stand together, shoulder to shoulder. We are powerful." Yet just as hope surged, chaos reigned. A few officers from the back moved closer, their demeanor hardening. They were ready for confrontation. Ayana's heart sank. Would all of this devolve into violence? What if Maya's voice, suddenly quiet but sharp, broke through Ayana's thoughts? "What if we show them who we really are?" Ayana paused, weighing her daughter's words. A direct challenge. What if they didn't need to cower or fight back with fists? What if they wielded their truth more powerfully than any weapon? But before Ayana could respond, another officer rounded a corner. He raised his baton, and time seemed to freeze, hearts collectively dropping. What had begun as a moment of unity was spiraling into something darker. As sirens blared nearby, the ground trembled with every tightening breath. What would the crowd choose, hope or fear, community or chaos? Don't back down, Ayana yelled, putting her free hand up to show she was ready for whatever came next. Maya watched, wide-eyed, her innocence battling her urge to scream in fear. Ayana didn't know how this would end, but she knew one thing. This was just a moment. It was their time to carve a new reality. What would it take to stand up for all they believed? Would they rise as one, or would fear tear them apart? Before Ayana could process the fear gripping her heart, the officer with the baton advanced. The crowd held its breath, a living statue brimming with tension. A flicker of movement from behind the officer caught Ayana's eye. It was Carlos, and he was slipping through the throng, an ember ready to ignite. "Listen," he called out, voice booming over the pulsating rhythm of the chants. "This moment is pivotal. We have the power to change the narrative." Every word of his rang with authenticity, a call to action that struck deep. Ayana's heart raced, aware of the weight of his words. A moment before, she felt fear pressing against her chest. But now, the unyielding desire for justice surged inside her. The officer hesitated, caught off guard by the chorus of voices echoing solidarity. They were proclaiming something far greater than just a fight against oppression. They were asserting their humanity and collective strength. "Don't let fear silence your heart," Carlos urged, stepping closer to where the officers braced themselves. "We're here for peace, for fairness, for our families. Remember, underneath the uniforms, we're all human beings." The crowd erupted again, rippling like a wave, the mantra transforming into an anthem. "Our lives matter. Our lives matter." It enveloped Ayana like a warm embrace. Suddenly, an unexpected voice pierced the atmosphere. "What about your oath?" It was Nancy, the Attorney General, stepping forward, her presence commanding yet calm. She looked straight at the officer brandishing the baton. "You swore to protect the people, didn't you?" The tension faltered as the officer's grip on the baton loosened for a fraction of a second. Ayana saw it. The vulnerability flickering in the officer's eyes had the power to ignite a change. She called out, "We see you, just as you see us. We're not just a crowd, we're communities of families, dreams, and stories." Maya shifted beside her, squeezing Ayana's hand tighter. "Mom, they're listening." The innocence in her voice filled the air with hope, urging Ayana forward. "Together, we can build a bridge, not walls," Ayana shouted, her voice rising above the swell of chanting. "This isn't about you versus us. It's about all of us striving for a better tomorrow." For a moment, it felt as if the world had hit pause. The officers exchanged glances, doubt flickering in their expressions. They had choices, ideals to uphold or fear to follow. Then, as if a dam had broken, one of the younger officers lowered his baton entirely. "We're here to serve," he muttered almost to himself, struggling against the weight of his own commitment. "That's right," Carlos replied, taking a step forward. "Stand with us. Together, we can make a real difference." Their voices melded, creating a tapestry of hope over the cacophony of fear. The officer's eyes shifted, looking at his colleagues, and for the first time, they didn't seem like an imposing wall, but fellow human beings caught in a moment of crisis. But suddenly, a shrill sound broke through the air. Another officer had fired a warning shot overhead. The moment of calm shattered, the chanting crowd erupting into panic. "No! Don't let fear take hold!" Ayana yelled, instinct pulling her forward. Her heart thundered as she realized what she had to do. Stay together. Don't disperse. We can't let them win. In that chaotic swirl of humanity, her spirit ignited. Hope mingled with adrenaline. All of a sudden, she wasn't just an attorney general facing officers, but a mother, a daughter, a fighter for justice. A renewed chant filled the air. Unity is our strength. Change starts here. Through the turmoil and confusion, she could feel Maya's hand squeeze tighter, sensing her daughter's own growing bravery. And that's when Ayana knew this was bigger than fear. It was about transforming turmoil into determination. As the sirens blared mercilessly, Ayana's voice rose above the din. Will we succumb to chaos, or will we rise as one? The choice is ours. But before the crowd could make their choice, another figure emerged from the shadows, a wild look in his eyes. Against the growing unrest, he shouted, Ayana, you have to see this. What was it? What revelation could change everything? Ayana's heart pounded in her chest. She turned to the newcomer, desperation etched on her face. What is it? What are you talking about? The man pushed his way closer through the crowd, his breath coming quick and heavy. I saw them. The officers. They took something from a woman. A black woman. His voice trembled, yet there was a fierce urgency behind it. What did they take? Ayana asked, feeling the weight of her daughter's hand squeeze her palm. The murmurs in the crowd started to quieten, the fear shifting into an anxious curiosity. Their faces were full of contempt, like they were determined to take her power away. They burned her passport right in front of her. He gestured wildly, panic flickering in his eyes. She couldn't even protect herself. They were trying to erase her identity. The words rippled through Ayana like cold water. The implications were staggering. Where is she? Ayana demanded, now fueled with a newfound urgency. The protest had felt chaotic, but now it seemed like every moment hung in the balance. Over there. He pointed toward the edge of the square, where shadows clung to the buildings like whispers of something sinister. Without thinking, Ayana stepped toward the shadows, Maya trailing closely behind. She could sense the gravity of the situation, an awakening sparked by indignation and camaraderie within the crowd. They could sense it too. This wasn't just a protest anymore. It was a fight for dignity. As they approached, Ayana could make out the figure of a woman sitting on the ground, shaking and surrounded by a few concerned bystanders. Mayam, are you okay? Ayana called out, as she knelt next to the woman. The woman looked up, eyes wide with disbelief. They took my passport. I'm nothing without it. Tears streamed down her face, and her voice cracked with anguish. They burned it like it meant nothing. Ayana felt her heart break. No, you are so much more than a piece of paper. You are important, and we will make them see it. As she spoke, she noticed the younger officer who had lowered his baton standing at the back, watching intently with concern in his eyes. Just then, another wave of shouting erupted within the crowd. The tension revived as a line of officers moved toward them, batons raised high, ready to exert their control once more. No! Ayana's voice rang out, breaking through the chaos. We have the right to stand here. We have the right to demand justice. The woman beside her looked at Ayana. But what can we really do? A new strength flowed through Ayana, her voice lifting with conviction. Look around you. This isn't just one person's fight. It's all of ours. When we stand together, we are unstoppable. The crowd began to chant again, this time with an added intensity. Justice. 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 Ayana could feel the pulse of unity around her. The ones who once felt powerless were now drenched in the fierceness of belonging. Even the officer, who had lowered his baton, was stepping forward, a slight change in his stance showing he might be ready to embrace the unity. But as the officers moved closer, there was a strange stillness in the air, as if the world itself had paused for just a moment. Would they push back? Would they hear the crowd's call? In that critical moment of uncertainty, the wild-eyed figure from before stepped in front of Ayana, still panting. You don't understand. There is something they're hiding. Something bigger. What is it? Ayana implored, eyes locked on his. It's not just about her, he said, urgency sharpening his tone. It's about the entire system crumbling. They're trying to hide something from all of us. Ayana felt her heart quicken. What could it be? What other truths lay buried beneath this chaos? And as the weight of his words hung in the air, she sensed a shift, a moment that could alter the course of everything they were fighting for. What were they truly up against? The tension crackled, leaving them all hanging on the brink of discovery. The night air hung heavy with anticipation as Ayana squinted at the wild-eyed man. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice steadied, though her heart raced with urgency. The officers, he replied, his breath still ragged. They burned her identity, sure, but that is just the surface. This is part of something bigger. They're trying to cover up a chain of evidence that ties back to decades of oppression right here in our community. Shock rippled through Ayana. Was it possible? Could their fight be connected to a deeper injustice? She could feel the crowd's energy shift, the anxiety thickening as they processed the implications of his words. We need proof. Someone shouted from behind her, words pushed by a swell of frustration and curiosity. Show us. Show us why we should believe you. Ayana's heart quickened, almost feeling the collective heartbeat of the crowd, buzzing with hopes for justice. She turned to the wild-eyed man, urgency enveloping them like a cocoon. Do you have anything that can help us? Anything that shows this goes deeper? He nodded, fortifying his resolve. I caught wind of it while covering another story. There's a list, hidden away in City Hall, a list of allegations that include racially charged encounters that have been buried. It's all connected. The space around them ignited with energy. Then we have to find it, Ayana cried, her voice rising with newfound determination. We can't let this night end without fighting for the truth. To City Hall, a voice roared, feeding off her energy. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, a living, breathing testament to unity. Let us go dig up the real fight. Wait! Maya tugged at Ayana's arm, worry pooling in her eyes. What if we're walking right into another trap? Ayana knelt, placing her hands gently on her daughter's shoulders. I know, baby. But staying silent has worked for so long. If we don't stand up for our rights and the truth, nothing will ever change. As they began to move, the crowd behind them surged forward, chanting. Ayana could feel the very ground beneath her feet pulse with hope and fear combined. The journey through the streets felt surreal. Ayana's resolve hardened with every step, emboldened by the sight of her neighbors, all driven by a singular purpose: justice, truth, reclamation of their identities. She could sense the fear in Maya, but also saw the flicker of courage reigniting in her daughter's spirit. When they reached City Hall, it towered over them like an imposing fortress. The flickering lights from the nearby street lamps cast long shadows across the facade, as if representing the weight of the battle still pending. Together, Ayana shouted as they approached the entrance. No fear. We demand the truth. The doors loomed large, refusing to easily give way. But as if sensing their determination, they opened, and a group of officers awaited them, their expressions hard, defensive. What are you doing here? One of them barked. Ayana stepped forward, undeterred. We're here to claim our identities. We demand to see the evidence buried in this building. Though initial resistance flickered in their eyes, she could see doubt at the edges of their bravado. You can't just stroll in here, another officer spat, but his resolve wavered under the unity they brought. Suddenly, the wild-eyed man stepped forward again, his face brightening with conviction. We have witnesses. Reports? Voices who need to be heard. We're determined to uncover the truth. Ayana's heart swelled. This is our moment. If we come together, they can't push us away. We will not back down. The force of her words electrified the air, and the community behind her erupted into a chant once more, louder and more unified than before. Justice! 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 Echoed through the walls of City Hall, shaking the foundations of complacency. The officers shifted uneasily, glancing at one another, as the roar of voices closed in on them, drowning out the echoes of judgments and biases they had held for far too long. Amidst the chaos, something broke. The tension crackled, and the officer's stoic facade began to erode. Slowly, a younger officer hesitantly stepped forward. We need to listen. Maybe it's time we admit something's gone wrong. And with that admission, Ayana felt a rush of hope. This was truly a moment of change. We will not be silenced any longer, she shouted, empowered by the reality finally in sight. We demand acknowledgement, we demand equality, and we demand our truth. The crowd surged, voices melding into a cacophony of activation, a challenge to the broken system, urging it to confront the truth it had long hidden away. Maya squeezed her mother's hand tightly, trusting in the newfound assurance of a unified front. The fire within Ayana burned bright, the spirit of her community unfurling like a banner of hope. They wouldn't give up until every voice rose, until the truth emerged from the shadows. This was their moment to shift the narrative, to reclaim dignity and power collectively. And thus, in that hallowed space, they stood, a community bound by shared pain and an unwavering commitment to justice, ready to face whatever awaited them, arms linked and voices raised. Ayana smiled, water pooling in her eyes, as her heart brimmed with gratitude and hope. They were fighting not just for today, but for every tomorrow. Let us go get our truth, she declared, leading her community forward into the unknown, knowing well that they held the power to forge a new reality. This was just the beginning. The fight would not be easy, but they were united. Hope echoed in the corridors of City Hall as they stepped forward to claim their truth, to rewrite their stories, and to demand their rightful place in a world that had long denied them. And they would not stop until change surged through their city, alive, bright, and unstoppable. If you felt this journey and share this vision, now is your chance to stand with this community. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It truly matters more than you know. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. Your thoughts are essential. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation ripple through their lives. Don't wait not even one more second. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us keep the momentum alive.